Welcome to the Neo Self-Care Podcast. This is the podcast where self-care meets transformation. My name is Vashti Maya, and I am your guide to exploring fresh, empowering ways to nurture your mind, body, and soul. Here, we go beyond bubble baths and face masks, and we dive deeper into personal growth, emotional wellness, and practical tools for thriving in every area of life. So whether you're here to build confidence, find balance, or to rediscover yourself, Neo Self-Care is your space to feel supported, inspired, and ready to embrace your journey. Let's grow, heal, and glow together, one episode at a time. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Neo Self-Care. Thank you so much for being here. Before we get started, I know, you all ain't even gotta tell me. We've been on for 2 months or something like that? 3 months, something like that. Let me tell you something. This cannot be an episode about self-care if we do not do self-care. Do you know what I mean? So please excuse the fact that we have been away. We will never be away again. We are fully in it. I am in school, so I have been dealing with so much finals and really just my major in class, and I couldn't give my time to both. I have now figured out a way to manage both my schooling and my podcast. So now I am back. But like I said, we can't be a podcast that's about self-care and then we don't do things ourselves. It just have to be put on pause. But we are here to finish out the year of 2024. It is December 10th on a beautiful Tuesday, and all of you are here listening, so thank you so much. I know I've been getting the messages, but everyone's like, hello, it's the podcast, girl. It's here. It's right here now, okay? So we're going to kind of just jump right into this episode. Today's episode is really geared around the power of self-compassion. And I really wanted to talk about this one today because I felt like that's something that I have been working with for the last few months with myself, being so hard on myself, okay, girl, you got to get this episode out. You got to get this episode out, and getting to the point where I'm not upset that I'm not doing it, showing compassion to myself. I really feel like that over the last 2 months, I really have taught myself a different form of self-compassion. And so that's what inspired me to really make this be the episode that we bring back to really kick off the rest of the 2024 into the new year 2025. And just to let people know, life happens. I am just like you. We are all human. We are all going through this together. We grow through things together. We give ourselves some type of compassion, some type of grace, and we're here. So with all that being said, welcome to today's episode. If you are new listening, I hope that you decide to stay around a little bit. This is the podcast where authenticity lays. I'm not gonna cut out things that I mess up on. I'm not gonna cut out any of that because I'm a real person just like you. I go through real things just like you, and I am continuing to grow through life just like you. This podcast is based off of my perspective, so sometimes maybe you don't agree, and that is okay. Everything is just my perspective and how I feel and what I feel has helped me, and hoping that it can help other people. So if you're new here, thank you for being here. I hope you stay. If you are a returner, y'all already know how I feel about y'all. I love you so much. Thank you for keeping this podcast growing and going. We have hit 2,000 listeners, you guys, and I am so flipping excited about it. Okay, so let's go ahead and break it down a little bit. So self-compassion, right? So just on a personal note, self-compassion is something that I feel like I have always struggled with. And I feel that way. I could blame it on my astrological signs. We're deep into astrology over here. I could say it's my, my Capricorn moon placement that allows me to be hard on myself, where I can't show myself compassion. I could say that it's my childhood trauma that has taught me to not be compassionate with myself. I can give every excuse over the sun and moon, under the sun and moon, to be honest. But the truth of the matter is, your history, your upbringing, your past does not determine your future. It is the choices that you start to make now. So with self-compassion, I've had that issue. I've had that issue for a long time. How to be compassionate with myself, how to show myself grace. People always say, oh, give yourself grace, give yourself more compassion. But no one talks about how, okay? And when you grow up in an environment where you were not taught compassion, and you may have felt compassion but was always told that your compassion is wrong, it will turn you into an adult that is left confused and unaware of how to give themselves compassion. And that's how I grew up. I didn't grow up in a compassionate household. I didn't grow up with, knowing that, hey, don't be so hard on yourself. Hey, you can try again. Don't look at your failures as failures. Look at them as, steps to get to where you're going. I wasn't taught none of that. There was no compassion. There was no compassion. I was not given compassion by my father. I was not given compassion by my mother. I was not given compassion by anybody. So it was something that I feel like as a child that I knew about, but as far as the application, I knew how to give it to other people. I did not know how to give it to myself. And so growing up as an adult is something that I realized, this might be important, So that's why I really want to talk about today. And it's something that I have been giving myself and has been feeling amazing about. And I can totally see how it's important, to give yourself the same compassion that you give to other people. So before we get started, I do want to just give you guys a reflective question to kind of sit on a little bit, to kind of think about. Maybe if you want to make it a journal prompt, you can. But it is, when was the last time that you gave yourself grace? When was the last time that you gave yourself grace? And I want you to really sit on that and think about that, because I don't feel that we do. I don't feel like we do at all. I think that it's easier to say, when was the last time you were compassionate for another person? You're like, oh my God, today at the grocery store. Or, oh, when, someone came to me and told me something they were feeling. It's easy for us to acknowledge when we may have given someone else the compassion that we needed to give ourselves, So think about that. That is the reflective question of the episode, and it's not for anybody else. It's just for you, okay? So what is self-compassion? So I will give you the definition that feels right to me. This is my podcast. These are my thoughts. I feel like I don't have to give that disclaimer, but just remember, all of this is just my perspective. These are my opinions. This is how I feel. Self-compassion is giving yourself grace, giving yourself some type of room to make mistakes, giving yourself some type of pass to make mistakes, or to grow through life without being cynical, or without, being so hard on yourself or talking down on yourself, understanding that you are a human, you are still the same child that you were born as, trying to understand and figure out this life that we all share. Self-compassion is just giving yourself that space to grow, to make mistakes, and understanding that mistakes may be made and being okay with that. That, I feel like, to me, that is the bulk of what self-compassion is. If you are able to give that to yourself. I feel like there are 3 types of components to self-compassion. I feel like the first one is self-kindness. Being kind to yourself, using kind words to yourself. Oftentimes people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid, or I'm so foolish, or I'm so sorry, or I'm whatever, right? And it's so funny because as a kid, we're taught to say, I'm sorry. But what you're really affirming to yourself is that you're a sorry person. So for me, I teach my children to say, I apologize, or I apologize for doing this, that, and that. I never make them affirm that they're sorry to themselves, because they are not sorry people. And so I do the same thing for myself. So with self-kindness is treating yourself kind when you make a mistake, not coming hard on yourself, not coming down hard, not treating yourself maybe the same way that your parents treated you when you were 6 or 7 and maybe you dropped a glass and broke it, because you're still clumsy at that age. And maybe they were the type of people who would like whoop you or like make you feel bad about the fact that you're a kid trying to like figure it out. And so then you adopted those same habits with talking about yourself and you make a mistake. Cut it out. Self-kindness is talking to yourself kindly, understanding that you were still that same child who has grown through life, so you hold more wisdom, right? Because you could say age or whatever. Age is a number, it's whatever. But you're still that same entity. You're just growing more in life, and so you're gonna still make mistakes. Nothing changes. Adults make mistakes, kids make mistakes. Nothing changes. But the way how you react to yourself, or the way that you respond to yourself when you realize that you've done something that maybe you weren't trying to do, or the way that you've done something that was not ideal, or maybe you thought it was okay at first, but then when you went back to look at it, you were like, that wasn't the best. It's how you respond to those things. That is self-kindness. That's self-kindness. I wouldn't say self-kindness is going out and treating yourself and buying stuff. I mean, I feel like that's more like a form of self-care on a physical aspect. But kindness is in how you treat yourself. And I feel like often people do not ask, do I treat myself kindly? Or the words that I say to myself, are they kind? Am I harsh on myself? Do I limit the freedom that I have? Do I limit myself if I don't accomplish something? Am I hard on myself? Am I tough on myself? Those are the questions that are formed from it. But self-kindness is all in how you speak to yourself, how you treat yourself, what you do for yourself. Do you acknowledge yourself? And I feel like that flows into the second component, which would be mindfulness. Understanding or becoming aware of the peace that you allow yourself to have. Are you super cynical or anxious, and therefore you put yourself at you keep yourself up, you ignore meditation or calamity or anything of that nature because maybe you did something wrong? Where is your mindfulness about it? Are you aware? Are you self-aware? Are you self-aware of both sides of the spectrum, or are you only aware of the negative as what you deem negative with what you do? Mindfulness comes with self-compassion, because when you think of mindfulness, most people think of like meditation or like calmness and all this other stuff. But even though that is a fraction of mindfulness, and even though those parts of mindfulness are important, right? Because you should take those moments to meditate, to visit your higher self, to visit who you actually are inside. Because so often do we ignore who we truly are inside to become the people who we think that we should be for other people. Often we ignore who we are. So mindfulness becomes important. Meditation becomes important to actually spend time with who we truly are. But mindfulness is also a sense of awareness. Are you aware of yourself? Are you aware of how you speak to yourself? Are you aware of how you treat yourself? Where does the awareness fall when it comes to you? And lastly, I'll say the third component would be common humanity. And when I say that, I mean, we're all human and we are all flawed one way or another. And it's a common trend. So when you make a human type of mistake, do you tell yourself like, oh, you shouldn't do this, this is not right? Or do you acknowledge, you know what, this is the common humanity flaw. This is just what it is, that humans are flawed. Do you accept that? Or do you tell yourself that you should be different? Do you tell yourself that whatever it is that you're doing now should not be what it is? Do you tell yourself that? Do you get what I'm saying? So I feel like that when it comes to the human commonality, like that should give you a little bit more grace, because you're like, you know what? I'm not the only person going through this. I'm not the only person dealing with this. I'm not the only person. And that in itself should give you grace to let you know that it's not just you. Now, sometimes I feel like that, people feel that, or there's a common misconception that self-care leads to complacency. And I feel that way. Oh, excuse me, not self-care. Self-compassion leads to complacency. And I feel like because people are like, you know what? I'm compassionate with myself, so I'm just going to stay where I'm at. But that's not the case. It's not about acknowledging where you are and like, oh, but that's just who I am. That's just what I'm dealing with. And then just leaving it there. No, that's not what it's about at all. It's about having the compassion to work through whatever issues or problems that are around, and then encouraging yourself enough to get up and to do something, to get up and to move forward. So instead of making a mistake and then you just stay there and stay complacent, you're like, oh, I'm compassionate myself. No, it's about like you make a mistake, you give yourself grace and say, hey, that's okay. Hey, that's okay. We made a mistake. What did we learn? Great. Let's take what we learned and let's apply it so we don't make the same mistake again. So you don't stay there. And I think with self-compassion, people think that they could just stay there. And that's not what it's about. It's about taking that and then growing from it, learning from it, and becoming something different. So how can self-compassion transform your life? Well, for starters, self-compassion completely reduces stress and anxiety. And there is actual science behind self-compassion and stress relief that I would strongly encourage you guys to look up, because when it comes to the self-care stuff, like I try it on myself, but I like to know if other people out there actually like did the research, empirical studies, what about it? You know what I mean? And there is a huge correlation between reduction of stress and anxiety and self-compassion. I mean, think about it, right? When you are not compassionate with yourself and something happens, oh, you're going to stress yourself out. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Why did I do that? How did this happen? What's going on, right? Anxiety. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Are they going to be mad at me? Are they going to be sad with me? Are they going to be upset? And what would I do? Why would I do something like that? It literally brings out so much discourse that I feel within yourself. But when you're able to become compassionate with yourself, the stress lowers, the anxiety lowers, and it doesn't just lower a little bit, it's like a significant drop, because you're not thinking that your choices are going to ruin your life. You understand that these choices are going to help you continue to grow in life, because you are able to view the results of your actions and you're able to take them in as lessons rather than as failure, rather than embarrassment. You take them as lessons to grow through, and you become gentle with yourself, knowing that you were not the only person in life who has dealt with these things. How else can it transform your life? It builds resilience. Treating yourself with kindness helps you bounce back from setbacks, because you're no longer looking at yourself like a failure. You're no longer looking at yourself as a loser. You're no longer looking at yourself as anything, because you understand that by you showing yourself some type of kindness, it allows you to look at things from a different perspective. You're not looking at things from a perspective of I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I did this wrong, so now I'm about to do everything wrong, now everybody hates me, da da da. You're not looking at yourself with those lenses. You're looking at yourself as, you know what, I did this. I noticed how this does not work with that. Therefore, I can adjust this and that, and I could do better next time. And I'm so proud of myself that I did something. Maybe it was the wrong direction, but at least I took that step to figure it out. Because you know how many people don't take that step? So many people literally do not take that step and they stay exactly where they are. But when you're able to identify, oh yeah, okay, so I went right this time, which took me left and up, which was not ideal. So maybe I should go left this time. That takes me down and left. Do you know what I mean? Like, it allows you to bounce back because you know that mistakes are just detours in your journey. It's not failing, but it's in the way that you speak to yourself. It's in the way that you treat yourself that allows you to continue going forward. Self-compassion transforms your life by fostering authentic confidence. It leads to a healthier self-image because when you speak life into yourself, you have more life to live. When you start treating yourself as if you are nothing, then you start to have nothing. You see, your words are power. And I know we've spoke about this plenty of times. And if you are unaware, every single thing that you speak is power. There were power in your words. So when you speak life into yourself, you give yourself more life. When you speak negativity and the opposite of life into yourself, that's what you're giving yourself. That's what you're fueling yourself. If you think of a train back in the day when it took like coal and stuff, right? If the more coal that you gave it, the more what? The more the train was just chugging along. The more coal, the further it will go. The more the engine revved, right? But if you gave the train nothing, eventually that train's gonna stop. So if you think of yourself as the train, or if you think of your consciousness or your subconscious as the train, and you think about what you're feeding it, are you feeding yourself more things to make you go? Or to grow? Or are you feeding yourself more things to just keep you stuck and stopped in your place? To where there is no growth. You don't go for it. That's just what it is. So the more life you speak to yourself, the more you feel good about yourself. They say when you look good, you feel good, right? But you can look good, but if you tell yourself you don't look good, you ain't gonna feel good. So if you look good and you speak good, that's when I feel like you feel good. Because now your physical is in alignment with your mental, which automatically makes your spiritual in alignment. Do you get what I'm saying? So what are some ways that you can cultivate self-compassion? Well, number one, the power of words. You must reframe negative self-talk into compassionate dialogue. So when people say things like, oh, I'm so stupid, you're just like, oh, you know what? I am so smart. I figured this out. And someone might be like, girl, you did not figure this out. And like, you figured this out. It took you 3 times to figure it out. But guess what? I figured it out. I'm not worried about the past. Why would I be worried about the past when I'm right here in the future? I figured it out. Or when you say, you know what? That's okay. I'm going to do better next time. Or I know better for next time. I'm going to grow through this next time. When you start saying things like, when you start speaking to yourself about how smart you are, how kind you are, how beautiful you are, those things actually matter. The dialogue, the internal dialogue you have with yourself. So for me, sometimes I go to sleep and I'll listen to affirmations while I sleep so I can train my subconscious mind. Sometimes I will record the affirmations with my own voice and play them back while I sleep because sometimes my subconscious mind wants to hear my own voice. I could take in things that other people say and it's all beautiful and it's all good. But I've learned that sometimes it hits more when it's my own voice. So I'll record a voice memo and I'll loop that thing on repeat, or I'll record something on my computer and then like make it into an audio track so I can play it on repeat, and I speak life into myself. The power of words. That is, I would say, is the most important thing to cultivate more self-compassion with yourself. Give yourself grace. Give yourself the opportunity to know that you're not going to have it all the time, and that's okay. Who wants to know everything? We're still fun in that, right? So start speaking more life into yourself. And then after that, I would say the second thing you could do is pause and reflect. Have a mantra like, I am a human and it's okay to make mistakes. Or when something happens that you didn't plan to happen, reflect on it. What may have gone wrong? Look at what went wrong. Don't look at it as I caused this to go wrong. Look at what went wrong as, I may or I should not do this again in life because I notice it does this. This is the effect. Notice the effect in your reflection so that you do not make the same mistakes going forward. Pause and reflect. I am human and it's okay to make mistakes. Or just say your own name. I say I'm Vashti and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay. I tell my kids that a lot. Sometimes as a parent, I'm not even gonna lie. Sometimes I forget, but majority of the times I tell my kids it's okay to make mistakes. Like I had a son who wrote something and he was appalled in the way that I handled it because I was like, it's okay, you just made a mistake. And what did it teach you? He's like, well, I should probably go slower next time. Absolutely. Look at you learning a lesson. Good for you. You found the lesson. So it became more of a lesson of what did you learn instead of what did you do. Do you get what I'm saying? And so when you're able to, like I said, I teach my kids that, but when you're able to teach that within yourself, it can go a long way. Another thing you can do to cultivate some type of self-compassion is write a letter to yourself. Journal. Journaling is great as a tool for self-compassion because you get all of your feelings out. You're not talking to anybody, you're talking to yourself, and you're not even talking to yourself out loud verbally, right? It's more of like telepathy with yourself, and you're getting all your thoughts and emotions out. And sometimes what you'll find is as you get into it, you start remembering other things, right? It's kind of like when you talk about one thing and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? And now that I think about it, this and this and that, it just adds on. So writing to yourself does the same thing. I've done that before. I've done it a few times. Now, this is not something that I do a lot of. I mean, I journal. Sometimes I'll just write out how I'm feeling for the day and, just reflect on my thoughts. But real reflection, I've done that a few times where I write a letter to myself, and I have found it to become such a sentimental thing. And it's not a sentimental thing because it's just a letter. It's because I literally just blurt out everything that I'm feeling without anybody telling me that I shouldn't, that I couldn't, or whatever. I just blurt it all out. I just put it out there for myself. Because why would I hide things from myself? I can't hide it from myself. I'm gonna know I'm lying about it. You can't hide things from yourself. You know when you're lying about something. You know when something doesn't feel right. You know when you're kidding yourself. You know when you're not 100% in it. You cannot hide from yourself. But I have found that when you start journaling, maybe about a specific topic, or maybe you're apologizing to yourself, because you're giving yourself some self-compassion and you're acknowledging the faults that you had within yourself, you're acknowledging the words that may not have been kind that you said to yourself when you were taking accountability for the way that you treated yourself, and you're writing it in a letter to yourself, Oh my God, it is so powerful. It's so powerful. Now, like I said, I haven't wrote many of them. It makes me too emotional. I start crying and stuff because, like, I'm like, oh my God, like I started doing this to myself. But it was very helpful. It was very helpful in my journey. I don't necessarily feel like I need to do any of that again because the letters that I did write to myself were very much intense and had a lot of knowledge with it, but it was very helpful. It was very helpful. So that's another thing that you could do. And then like just one last thing that I would recommend or suggest that I also do on the daily is daily kindness rituals. So this is like small acts, like taking a moment each day to celebrate something that I did well, or taking a moment to celebrate an accomplishment or something, or like, so when you take the time to notice something, it can be as small as, hey, you did not walk over that sock today. You decided to pick it up. It could be that small. Or it could be like, hey, you did not stay in the bed for 10 minutes today. You decided to get up like after 9 minutes. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be grand. It could just be small. But when you notice your daily kindness rituals, you're going to make it a purpose. It's going to become a habit to look for, okay, like, what am I doing this time? How is it beneficial this time? What can I do this time? It becomes a game. It becomes exciting. And that's something that I definitely incorporated into my life. I used to write down things each day that I did well or that I'm proud of myself of or something. And it could even be like, maybe I let somebody merge. That's what I'm saying. It could be so small or it can be something massive. Like back when I used to work for like CPS, I would write down like, I made it to where CPS is outside of like a family's home. I reunited a family with their children and gave them the information they needed so that they were no longer involved in CPS, which isn't a grand scheme, right? But I've also written things like, I let 2 people merge today. Because that in itself is something good. I may not have known the ripple effects that cause to let that person come in front of me and let that person get to where they need to go earlier. I may not ever see that ripple effect, but it is the kindness, especially here on the East Coast, up north, where people don't let people merge. It's a kindness, So even doing things like that matter. And so do your daily kindness rituals. Let it be at the end of the day before you go to sleep. When you do something before sleeping, when you start acknowledging things before you sleep, that is when it is most prominent in your subconscious mind. So do your daily kindness rituals prior to bed, okay? I feel like self-compassion has helped me through a lot of challenging moments, and I will take it to something as superficial as like weight loss, weight gain, or whatever, and giving myself kindness and grace. And especially when I was a person who used to look for instant gratification, and teaching myself that it's okay to not, teaching myself that there is beauty in the time, teaching myself that there is beauty in the delay. And it was a lot, okay? It was a lot. But I have found that by giving myself self-compassion and acknowledging the small victories or celebrating the small wins or whatever, has made me feel more open or susceptible to doing more things. Because when I become critical of myself, yeah, a little bit, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm so critical. But ultimately, it doesn't last. And it doesn't last because myself, I need that balance. I need them, I feel like as human, or in life in general, we need the balance of masculine and feminine energy. And compassion would definitely be more of a feminine trait, but not feminine like, oh, you gotta be 100% girly. No, it's just a feminine trait. And us being human, we have both masculine and feminine traits. Ambition, hustle, masculine trait. But being able to show yourself compassion on the way, feminine traits, so becoming fully balanced is the goal. See, a lot of people are overly masculated and a lot of people are overly feminized. But if you can find the balance between the two, that's where what you're looking for, that's where it lies. That's where it sleeps. That's where it dwells. Okay? Practicing self-compassion has strongly impacted my own journey. I've been like dealing with this on and off for about 7 years. I finally, and it feels so good. I'm not even gonna lie. It finally feels so good to be able to get to a point where I could say that I show myself self-compassion. I'm in school right now. I'm in grad school right now, right? And I literally, I think I failed my midterm. And I was like, oh my goodness. I could feel all the emotional flooding coming in where I felt like I was low, insignificant. How can I not grasp this? I'm literally passing all of my classes. How am I failing this one midterm for this one class? I had all the reason in the world to turn off the self-compassion, and I did not. And it's so interesting because by me not doing so, my professor ended up emailing me. He was like, well, Vashti, what happened? I wasn't expecting this from you because when you speak in class, I was just expecting you to be, have a higher grade. You're one of my top students. And it was so much so that he was like, so I am going to give you these extra 10 questions. And if you can answer this for me, then I will level your grade to where you have a B+. What? Look, self-compassion. Because, that goes deeper into manifestation and stuff, right? Because what you think about, you bring about, all that stuff. But by giving myself compassion, regardless of what happened, because I was like, you know what, that's just a midterm. I literally get A's on all my assignments, but I just happen to do that midterm. I'm going to do better in the final. I literally told myself that. And by giving myself that grace, I created a scenario where someone else did the same thing for me. So give yourself grace. You have no idea how it can influence another person just speaking about manifestation or not, You have no idea. But you do it anyway, and you push through it, and you hope for the best. It's a continuous process. Self-compassion, it's a strong, continuous process. But if you can get through it, then it's worth it, 100%. It is 100% worth it. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. I'm going to leave you with a journaling prompt, or at least just something else to think about. I left you with a question at the beginning of this podcast, and I want to leave you with another question for the end of the podcast. I want you to ask yourself, what does self-compassion mean to me? And I really want you to think about that and really find the answer. Because everything that I've given you today has been what it means to me. And perhaps some of you have no meaning of what it meant. And so you're just like, you know what? I'm going to take yours too, Vashti. But I want you to consider. I want you to take the time and figure out, what does it mean to you? And what can you do for yourself to make sure that you are implementing what it means to you? Okay? So I appreciate you guys more than you will ever know for being on here tonight with me and for, listening to another episode. I said tonight. Listening to another episode and everything else with me today. Please tune in next week. Next week, we're going to talk about mindful self-care for busy lives. And I know all of us being adults have a lot of busy lives. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. But I want to just end with an uplifting affirmation that you can take with you on your journey. And that is, every step forward is worth celebrating, no matter how small. Every step forward is worth celebrating, no matter how small. So I appreciate you once again. I hope that you take that along with you. I hope that today's episode has given you some type of clarity. I am back. I feel so good about being back. And I just wish that you guys have a phenomenal rest of your year. You will see you guys again next week on Tuesday. But I hope you have a phenomenal rest of your year, an even greater 2025. And I hope that you take everything that we've talked about this year on this podcast with you into the new year, so that you can become the absolute best version of yourself. That is my goal for you, to continue to treat yourself with compassion, with care, and creating that self-care that has been detached from each and every one of us. I'm here to help you claim it back, reclaim your power. And if you slacked a little bit, that's okay. That's okay. We pick up from where we are and we continue moving forward. We pick up from where we are, we continue moving forward. We speak to ourselves kind, we treat ourselves kind, and we continue moving forward without being complacent. Okay? So I will catch you guys next week on another episode of Neo Self-Care. I appreciate you guys for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, any comments, or whatever, please feel free to send us an email or send us a message on social media at Neo Self-Care Pod. And I will see you guys next week. And remember, every step forward is worth celebrating, no matter how small. I am Vashti Maya. I love you guys. You can follow me on Instagram at Vashti Maya. Everything will be linked down below. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.